The motion be agreed to. A point of order.
I seek leave to clarify Labor and Progressive vote on the urgency motion. To correct.
On the urgency motion. Leave sought for that. We'll start. Oh, no. Yeah. Let me just... I was in the House. I think I can answer this. There actually wasn't a party vote. It was only on the voices, and so the member actually there is no record to correct. So it's the leave is out of order, I think we could say. So we are now looking for someone to seek the call. Brendan Burns.
Thank you very much. Labor is opposing this bill. This is a constitutional outrage on a whole number of levels. This bill is replacing Environment Canterbury's elected councillors with government-appointed commissioners. This will take place. I will come back to the issue of Rodney Council, and the member for Selwyn better take note that this is a measure which is going to have universal appeal in her electorate. And it would be useful if that member's office was able to advise people who've called this afternoon and the office was unable to provide advice as to what her position would be. But put that to one side. This is a bill which will absolutely disenfranchise the voters of Canterbury for the next three and a half years. This is not a quick fix. This is a long-term assault on the democratic model, which we happen on this side of the House to believe is quite important constitutionally. And this follows on from the Creech review, which took place in a time frame of just under a month. It consulted fewer than 20 stakeholders. It talked to the mayors, yes, but not to the councils, and the councils had not been consulted by their mayors, and one has to say that mayors may have a different view about what's important for territorial authorities in Canterbury than their councils actually have. Environment Canterbury is a democratically elected body. It's had a history which has included members of this House as members. What this bill is going to do, without any chance for public submission, is to disenfranchise the voters of Canterbury, and that's one of the points of relevance already raised in terms of contrast with what happened at Rodney. We'll come to that in a minute. This will see National and the ACT Coalition appointing 4 to 7 commissioners, making all of the decisions for Environment Canterbury, going further than the recommendations of the Creech review, which said, in fact, that Environment Canterbury was doing a good job in respect of all of its other functions. And yes, it was saying it was doing a good job, and in fact, not only that, I went to the briefing held by Wyatt Creech and the commissioners, and it said, in fact, that some of the issues around water were, in fact, the responsibility of this Parliament, of government, of the Environment Court, that not even on the issue of water alone could all of the responsibility for the management of water and any question mark about the track record of that management be sheeted home to Environment Canterbury. So why aren't we seeing a bill which actually embodies those thoughts from the review of ECAN conducted by Wyatt Creech and his review team in rapid fashion? And the reason is around the politics of water and this government's determination to get quick runs on the board in the next year without the environmental checks and balances being put in place. And I put that issue to the Minister. This morning. I said, will there be accompanying legislation to this to ensure that a new rounds of allocation of water, as envisaged under this bill, at the centre and core of this bill, will there be new environmental checks in place to ensure that new water is allocated in a better way, that anybody in Canterbury would accept that there isn't, and at this point in time, the best water quality in Canterbury, the level of water quality that there should be and should be in place. And he agreed there was no accompanying legislation. So what we're seeing is National and ACT removing a democratically elected council so that Nick Smith and his colleagues can run the decisions in Canterbury in terms of water. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. Cantabrians, people in my province, will not get the chance to have a say on who manages their water, their public transport, their Clean Air Act, the coastal environment for the next 3.5 long years. 3.5 long years, because this government wants to abrogate that fundamental fundamental democratic right. Now, I would have thought that a party of the opposite, a party from the right, would uphold the principle that there should be no taxation without representation. But that's fundamentally violated by this bill. That's a fundamental principle of the right, and it's discarded for convenience sake. It's discarded by this government because it doesn't fit what they want to do in terms of rapid allocation of new water without any checks and balances, put in place. That's what this bill is about. It's about a rapid allocation of new water to industries across Canterbury. Now, this party, Labor, supports sustainable growth. We want to see growth in Canterbury. We want to see the greening of the plains, but we are not going to tolerate more browning of the waters, and that's what this bill puts at risk, because you're taking out the function of ECAN, which, whatever its faults, has now in recent months and years matched the environmental record in terms of RMA processes of other councils, absolutely matching the record of other councils in terms of that. It has also been the instigator and driver of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy, which I note is included in the bill in terms of a schedule to it, and there are references in the bill to taking account of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy, but where is the inclusion of the bill? Where is the reference to the water management strategy in terms of any decision-making process? It's got to be consulted, it's got to be taken account of, but where is the requirement that the Canterbury Water Management Strategy is going to be embodied by this legislation? It's not there. It's not there. And I can tell you that I think the people who've been involved in bringing that once-in-a-lifetime strategy together for Canterbury are going to be very nervous at the appointment of these commissioners, because they know that ultimately those commissioners are answerable to Nick Smith, to the Cabinet, to the government, to the ACT Party, not to the ratepayers of Canterbury, not to the people of Canterbury, not to the people who should be deciding how water is allocated, but to a Cabinet agenda on the record, explicit, new allocation, new water in Canterbury from next year without the commensurate, appropriate environmental checks put in place. We all know that Parliament and government have not put in place a sufficiently rigorous system to do that. This bill does absolutely nothing to deliver it. Where are those new environmental standards? They're simply not there. And this minister talked in his introduction about a step change in water management. It's a step change in water management towards allocating more water rapidly, not the step change that the Canterbury Water Management Strategy envisaged, where you put the environmental outcome first, not second, first. You put in place a requirement to improve the existing water quality before you go into allocating new water, because we have no lowland stream left in Canterbury where you can still safely swim and take your kids. A birthright has been lost. That must be the first priority for Canterbury, not rapid new allocation of water. Let me come to the issue of how Rodney Hyatt has won the day on this. This is just a repetition of what happened in Auckland. A repetition. I think that Nick Smith's been rolled on this. I think Nick Smith probably would like to put in place some new environmental frameworks to support better water quality. I think Rodney Hyatt has won the day on this again, and it's a surprise because he managed to get through those changes in Auckland. He absolutely abrogated the rights of Aucklanders for a say in the change of their super city legislation, absolutely put that to one side, and yet we've now got a similar situation, except it is worse. It is worse because at least Aucklanders had a select committee process. Here is this bill being rammed through under urgency, not a single chance or a single voice from Canterbury to be heard on decisions which will affect their rights under democratic process. They are being absolutely abrogated by this bill. They've got no right for any say. We are going to see this bill go through in urgency in the next 24 hours. That's a fundamental breach of democratic right and representation. The Rodney District Council approached the government for a review. There was a hearing process where local people were able to have an input. This has not even got a ritual bow towards the democratic process. It's blitzkrieg. It is blitzkrieg of democracy. It is blitzkrieg of the rights of the people of Canterbury. It is forcing through a change, a fundamental change against the supposed principles that party opposite is there to represent in terms of no taxation without representation. It is being forced through in extraordinary fashion by this government. Not a chance for any. And who is next?